Hey kids, this is Chef Jack with another edition of Marvel vs. DC. You all know the rules by now. Englentine and I have divided up every single comic book released by both DC and Marvel, and each week we review those new releases. We give each book a score of 1 to 5 stars, and at the end we average out the points, and the publisher with the best average score is the winner for that week. With all that said, let's get this party started. The 1-star books. These are the worst. Not merely bad, but awful and horrendous. Avoid them at all costs. Deadpool 34. Imagine a story in which you find out that you've been unknowingly duped into murdering an ally, and then have to kill a second ally just so you can remain out of prison to stop the evil overlord who duped you in the first place. That sounds like a pretty good story, doesn't it? The problem is, now make it a Deadpool story. Have the evil overlord be Captain America. Have it all tie into that ridiculously awful Secret Empire event. Folks, I can no longer understand how anyone would want to read this title anymore. I can't. I just can't. I know I'm going to because I review these things. But my suggestion to anybody out there who's buying this title, stop. Just stop. Go find something that's better, because this is just a big pile of crap. Stop. Stop reading it. Maybe they'll stop printing it. Edge of the Venomverse number 3. While the first issue of this miniseries was pretty good, number 2 and this issue number 3 are really not very good at all. The level of storytelling has fallen through the floor and into the basement, and then it's fallen through the floor of the basement. We're introduced in this issue to the quote-unquote host writer, a mix between Ghost Rider and Venom, but he's a side character in his own tale. The real star here is an alternate version of Mr. Hyde, whose actions do manage to give the book a hint of enjoyability, but aren't actually enough to rescue it up to the 2-star level. Not only is 90% of this issue crap, there's nothing here to redeem it. The art is crap, the dialogue's crap, the story's crap, the plot's crap, the character interaction is crap. I would honestly love to see this version of Mr. Hyde in a mainstream Marvel Universe book. It's just a shame that he's wasted in this particular issue. Spider-Gwen number 22. I've heard some other reviewers say that this title is a bit of a slow burn, but the way I see it, it's just slow. It's badly paced, and this issue is filled with unnecessary exposition and scenes we don't need. I mean, do we really need to see Wolverine's origins again? It's all very, very predictable, and while there are some moments of humor here, most of this is just a waste of time. There's just absolutely no reason to read it because we've seen it all before. And on top of it all, the artwork is jarringly bad. The coloring is horrible. It's all just a mess. This issue just feels stagnant, which is a good way to describe the entire series so far. I have no idea what's going on in the writers' heads, but it feels like they're not even trying anymore to make a decent story. Suicide Squad number 22. This issue is just way, way inconsistent. The parts with Amanda Waller, her interrogation by Carla and her escape, not to mention the discussion in between, that was okay, and it might be looked at as the start of an amazing story were it not for the rest of the crap in this issue. Because the rest of it is just that, it's crap. The mission, what there was of it, was boring and trite and horrible, and the character interaction was predictable and horrible. I just can't buy into the idea of Harley Quinn being the new leader of the squad because she's supposed to be a complete nutcase, just disconnected. No one with any sense would put her in charge. And besides, when she's acting like Captain Commando, she's nothing like the light and frothy, lethal Harley Quinn who's a fan favorite. This issue is a complete misstep on the part of the writers, and it's leading into what I suspect is going to be just a brutally bad storyline. The 2-star books. These comics might be bad, but there's usually 1 or 2 things that save them from being truly horrible. Blue Beetle number 11. You remember the last time I reviewed the Blue Beetle title and I said it was the end of the Aryan story? Yeah, well, they tricked me, and they carried it over one more issue. This issue's the actual end of it. It also deals with the aftermath of the fight with Arian, and it looks into Jaime Reyes's private life and the effects the fight had on other people and on El Paso itself. The entire issue is an attempt at a slow approach to build some characterization, and those issues can work if you do it right, but this issue's just slow as a glacier, and it uses about 20 pages to get across what could have done in 1 or 2. There are a couple of bright spots, I won't lie about it, but the muddled pacing and the walls of text just ruin the story in this issue. But I am beginning to get used to Keith Giffen's rough around the edges art. All told, though, this issue just isn't doing anybody any favors, and it doesn't help that the first thing this issue does is make the apparent takeover of the Scarab at the end of last issue the mother of all ass-pulls. Infamous Iron Man number 10. By way of multiple flashbacks, this issue is attempting to humanize Victor Von Doom and bring him back to the light side, if it will. Now, this is a good solid try, but the truth is, Dr. Doom is such a grandiose villain that trying to turn him into a hero was something that Marvel should never have bothered to even attempt in the first place. The writers are trying to rebuild a character who was set in stone decades ago and has become iconic as a villain. All that aside, as an individual issue, it suffers from horrendously slow pacing and muddled art. In addition, we all know that this title is going to be ending once Marvel Legacy launches, so there's absolutely no way the writers are going to be able to tie up together all the loose ends before that happens. As a result, it leaves this particular issue just sort of hanging there, not really doing much. I'd call it filler, but it doesn't really fill anything. The Mighty Captain Marvel number 7. You know what the biggest problem is with comics that are stuck supporting big events, like this issue is stuck supporting Secret Empire? The problem is that the supporting comic gets stalled out waiting for the big event to finish. Seriously, nothing is ever going to happen in Mighty Captain Marvel until Secret Empire finishes, and that's just a fact. Because Secret Empire has Carol Danvers stuck off Earth fighting an endless repetitive wave of alien invaders, like she's stuck in a game of Space Invaders from the 70s. And it goes round and round, and it's going to happen over and over until the Secret Empire is done with. Until this, nothing else is happening. I mean, sure, in this issue we get some okay action scenes. The artwork isn't bad, but the story overall is utterly worthless because we saw it last issue, we're going to see it again next issue, and not to mention, Carol Danvers is being sidelined in her own title because of having to host all those guest stars who don't have any other place to go. If you're a fan of the character, sure, go ahead and buy it. If you're not, don't bother. There's just no point. The 3-star books. These comics are just average. They fall neither on the good end of the spectrum nor the bad. Batgirl number 13. This issue's another one-shot, and to be honest, it was just about as silly as the last issue. Last issue, of course, we had ghosts in a swimming pool, and this time we've got kidnapped cats and dogs. The story in this book wasn't horrible. It was, in fact, kind of fun. But I can't take it seriously at all. I mean, I did enjoy the reintroduction of one of Batgirl's old villains from the 60s and 70s, the Velvet Tiger, but I think that what I'm waiting for are some actual serious stories that have meat on their bones, if you know what I mean. This one just wasn't it. This story isn't going to win any prizes, but it does tell a pretty cute, if silly, story, and it is well drawn. It's basically just a throwaway issue, and like I said, I'm waiting for something that I can actually sink my teeth into. Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series, number 1. This title serves as a lead-in to the brand new Telltale Guardians of the Galaxy game. Thankfully, you don't have to have played or even been familiar with the game to get into this story. Unfortunately, the story isn't anything groundbreaking or overly original. That said, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. I mean, the story's a bit pedestrian, and the characterization's lifted straight from the movies, but there's nothing awful here that you're going to dislike. Likewise, the art is functional but not spectacular. So if you're burnt out on the Guardians, you're likely going to want to avoid this one, but if you're a fan, you're going to want to pick it up. But to me, it's strictly a middle-of-the-road offering. Neither really great or really terrible. but at least it does have a cameo by Howard the Duck. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, number 25. This is one of those problematic issues where it's pretty terrific on a technical basis, but it has a story that I'm not completely on board with, so I'm sort of conflicted about it. In this issue, the alliance between the Yellow and Green Lanterns reach a breaking point and it ends. Saranac Natu claims the name Sinestro for herself. It's a pretty intense finale to a mostly enjoyable storyline. But of course, the alliance between the Yellow Lanterns and the Green Lanterns, while it was a cool idea, it was doomed from the start. I mean, the two are just not compatible. And I'm still not sure if I buy into Saranac Natu going full-on sociopath. I'm also going to miss the bromance between Guy Gardner and Arquilo. That was just cute. As Venditti has written them here, there are no good guys or bad guys in this issue. There's just a bunch of people with chips on their shoulders who are acting like assholes toward each other. The art, at least, is as strong as always, even if the story had a few holes. And if it seems like I'm coming down on this issue, I'm not really doing that. I just expected more than it delivered. Mother Panic number 9. I always get a little apprehensive when I'm reviewing Mother Panic because so far every issue has been either terrific or it's been terrible. This one, well, it's not terrible, but it's hardly terrific either. So, Violet confronts the body bag killer, who gets named Remains in this issue, but I think that's dumb. She's going ahead and she's kicking his ass, and then she has a seizure out of nowhere, and Batman has to swoop in to rescue her. Now, I like the fact that Violet put herself on the line, as this is the first true heroic act we've ever seen from her, but the fact that they fell back on the Batman ex machina to rescue her, it kind of caught in my craw. It felt wrong, because the point of this character is that she's a strong, independent woman who doesn't take shit from anybody, so why does she need Batman to rescue her? Overall, this issue was satisfying, but it just wasn't that satisfying. And like I said, it was unfortunate that they decided to resort to a Batman rescue to resolve the storyline. Teen Titans number 10. Benjamin Percy might just well be the most consistent writer out there right now. That said, what I mean by most consistent is he's consistently average. He doesn't reach the heights that some of his colleagues can attain, but, you know, at least he's not putting out the cringeworthy dreck like some writers that other people have reviewed. You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. A lot of what goes on in this issue feels like it's writing by checkbox. You know, Damian Wayne's a jerk who needs to get his ass kicked. Check. Beast Boy makes inappropriate snarks. Check. Raven is quasi-cryptic while still trying to be helpful. Check. There's a cliched cliffhanger that we saw coming from a mile away. Check. As usual in this title, the art is what saves the book from a worse rating than I'm giving it. Oh, and I will say that Black Manta, who's one of my favorite villains, is well used in this issue, and I love the way that he is presenting himself as an honest threat. The 4-star books. Now we're getting to the good stuff. These are the comics we can actually recommend. Batman Beyond number 10. Dan Jurgens continues to deliver with this issue. It's part 5 of the Rise of the Demon story. This is a great read. It's very entertaining, and it's quick. You'll get through it really fast. We get to see how Damian Wayne goes from being an annoying little kid to being the new Ra's al Ghul. And I gotta say, I'm actually one of those people who want to see Damian Wayne die in a fire, and I still enjoyed this issue. The best part about it was the action, which is almost constant. It was interrupted occasionally by flashbacks, but they don't slow down the actual story. And I have to say, I can't end this review without talking about just how perfect Bernard Chang's art was. It fit the story perfectly, point to point. All that said, the constant melodrama involving the AI-empowered battlesuit, yeah, that's gotten tiring, and I want to see it go away, and it's what keeps this from being a 5-star issue. Dr. Aphra number 10. Dr. Aphra succeeds more than any of the other Star Wars books produced by Marvel at bringing new and different elements to the table. I think this is because it's based on characters who really aren't a part of the movie universe, and thus we have no expectations of them at all. This issue chronicles the high-stakes auction for Aphra's precious Jedi artifact. It's a simple story, and we've seen this kind of thing in other places. But despite this, the story carries a tension that's actually surprising. There are a couple of disappointments, namely the fact that the cliffhanger from the last issue was completely ignored. But there's plenty here to enjoy regardless. And I've got to say, the art is absolutely phenomenal and distinctive. It's a surprisingly complex story with a very simple premise, but it's done really well. Justice League of America number 11. Believe it or not, I think this might be the best issue of this title so far. The previous 10 issues have been way too inconsistent. Some of them have been great and some have been terrible. I'm hoping that this issue is a sign that the creators are finally hitting their stride. And for the first time, we get to really delve into what makes one of the main characters tick. This incarnation of the Ray is a very complex character, and he's not only learning the extent of his powers, but he's dealing with his opposition to Batman's attitudes, his role in the Justice League, and the realization that unfortunately his mother never wanted him. The character development here, it is just so amazing that the resolution of the King Butcher problem just seems tacked on. The issue's far from perfect, however, but it is a good first step in the right direction, and I'm going to go ahead and cross my fingers and hope that Steve Orlando continues to pump out writing that is as strong as what's found in this issue. Commandy Challenge number 7. One of the most enjoyable things about this series has always been seeing how the writers pick up the dangling cliffhanger from the previous issue and then deal with it and move the story forward. And unfortunately, in the last couple of issues, this has been more of a chore than anything fun, especially after the complete butchering that Steve Orlando gave it in the last book. But Bennett and Jurgens go for broke here, and it pays off huge. I mean, in this issue, there's a polar bear ice wizard, there's magic, there's fighting, there's even some dogs who are playing poker. The entire book is written with a tongue-in-cheek go-for-broke style, and it makes it fun. I mean, who doesn't love this kind of stuff? Sure, it's not perfect, but I've got to say it goes a long way to fixing the problems brought on by the last couple of issues in this series, and it makes it fun again, and that's always a good thing. The Punisher number 14. This is another exciting one-shot story, and just like the one in last issue, it works pretty well. It's been a while since we've had these sorts of compressed, self-contained Punisher stories that only take up 1 or 2 issues, and to tell you the truth, I've always preferred them to the big, grandiose tales that take up a year. The premise for this issue is pretty simple. A blackout creates an opportunity for bad people to prey on the innocent, and Frank Castle intercedes. This story is made up of a lot of simple elements that are combined to present an enjoyable story that is really high on action. And it's great to see the Punisher dealing with street criminals again. I also love how he puts down the bad guys with not only his usual guns, but with knives and swords and even electrical cables. That's what I call diversity, folks. The art is murky, to be honest, even for scenes that are supposed to be taking place during a blackout. But that's just the only problem here. It is really unfortunate that this title only has 3 more issues left in its run. The 5-star books. These books are the best of the best, at least for this week. These are the ones that we recommend the most. Black Panther number 16. Yeah, I know. I was surprised by this too. Ta-Nehisi Coates put the primary storyline on hold to give the Black Panther a side quest, investigating the disappearance of one of his old girlfriends. And I gotta say, compared to Coates' usual work on the Black Panther, this issue was great. Now, the story has lots of fine action beats, and it's got some great character moments. And most surprisingly at all, it had not one racist remark about how all white people are evil. I've always been a fan of the Wrecking Crew as a villain team, and Thunderball in particular when they're used correctly, and Coates uses them brilliantly in this title. It was just a great issue. And as much as I'm predisposed to dislike the Black Panther as a title, I gotta hand it to him, this one was pretty damn good. Doom Patrol number 7. The illustrious leader of the Doom Patrol is back, folks. Or, you know, not quite. If this issue gets across one thing to new fans of the Doom Patrol, it's that Niles Calder is what Professor X would be like if he were completely insane and had access to high technology. In this issue, he tries to shove this brand new Doom Patrol back into the boxes that the old Doom Patrol fit into out of a desperate need to lead them again. Except he finds out this new group is not going to fall back into the old habits of the original group. I gotta tell you, the writing in this issue was stellar. It was fun, and it just kept everything going. The dialogue was spot on. The characterization was flawless. As for the art, it was just fun. It was bright, and it was colorful, and it brought a sense of visual joy to me that I haven't seen in a lot of comics. It was just all very wild, and it was crazy, and I loved every minute of it, and I cannot recommend this issue enough. Looney Tunes number 238. Wile E. Coyote has a new universal remote, and it seems to control not just his television, but the entire universe as well. Naturally, for a title aimed at younger kids, the plots featured in the 4 stories in this issue are kind of thin. And also naturally, it being a Looney Tunes book, the art's cartoonish, but you know what? That's just fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. The stories are all fun, and they're enjoyable. And if you've got a child who's just beginning to read, this is a title you can use to get them interested in comic books. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this issue at all. It is absolutely perfect. The art is just great, and the stories, like I said, are just fun. X-Men Blue number 8. This issue ties into the Secret Empire event just like seemingly every other title Marvel is producing these days. Beast, Iceman, and Cyclops have been taken hostage in the mutant sanctuary of New Tian in Hydra-occupied America. After being left for dead, Jean and Jimmy plan a rescue and get some surprising assistance from allies that they didn't know they had. Fans of Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men should get a kick out of that part, by the way. I'll be honest, it's taken me a long while to warm up to X-Men Blue. I originally thought the idea of a book based on the time-displaced original X-Men team from their teenage years was a bit silly, but slowly and surely it has grown on me, and I think it's because Cullen Bunn is not just repeating the things that we've seen before. This issue had a lot of fun elements, and it was highly original, and the art was just fantastic, and there was literally nothing wrong with it. I tried to find it, and it wasn't there. This is a great book. And now to round up the scores. Marvel Comics had 3 1-star books, 2 2-star books, 1 3-star book, 2 4-star books, and 2 5-star books, for a total score of 28 points. I reviewed 10 issues, which means their average score is 2.8. DC Comics, on the other hand, had 1 1-star book, 1 2-star book, 4 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 2 5-star books, for a total score of 37 points. I reviewed 11 issues this week, which means that their average score was 3.36. So, for this week, the winner when it comes to my Marvel vs. DC reviews is once again DC Comics. As Englentine said, wow, what a surprise. What a shocker. But congratulations to DC nonetheless. But folks, what did you think about these comics? Was I right? Was I wrong? Was I just completely full of it? Tell me why you think so in the comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more of them, click like and subscribe and the little notification bell in the corner so you don't miss any of our future videos. And if you feel like helping out, we've got a Patreon page and a VidMe page set up, and there are links below. Feel free to wander over and drop $1 in the till. But even if you don't do that, thanks for taking the time out to watch. We do appreciate it, and we hope to catch you next time. Thank you very, very much for watching.
I've got time to think about the beauty of 1,000 variations of the beating of a wing, of a hummingbird suspended in the aspic of the world, moving slower than molasses as I'm off to catch the girl.